Hey there, welcome to the latest edition of Seconds Out Reflections. I'm Danny Flexen. I'm here every Monday at 4:30 p.m. to talk about the boxing action of the weekend just gone. And this week, kind of regret to call it boxing action when we're talking about an exhibition fight between a YouTuber and the greatest fighter of my generation. But that's what it was on Sunday last night in Miami. We saw Floyd Mayweather go the 8-round distance. No official result because it's an exhibition with Logan Paul. It's an interesting one. I've seen the highlights. I've read reports. I didn't pay for it. Sorry, Sky Sports. I know you're going through a tough time, guys, at the moment, but you're in transition. I'm sure you'll recover, but yeah, you're not getting my money for that. But yeah, I've seen enough of it to kind of get an idea of the narrative from it. And everyone kind of leaves happy. Maybe not the fans, I'm not sure, but if you paid for it, then you deserve whatever you get. But I think both fighters will come out of it with a level of satisfaction. Floyd for making loads of money from what he called a legalised bank robbery, quite accurately, I thought. And Logan Paul for going in with the greatest boxer, as I say, of our generation and managing to last 8 rounds without getting stopped or knocked out. So, and fair play to him. Fair play to him for training for it, for giving it his all. Don't get me wrong, I would get in with Floyd Mayweather and last as long as I could for the amount of money that Logan Paul will make from this fight. However, you know, credit to him for biting down on his gum shield and not taking the easy way out, because once the money's made, it's made. There was nothing stopping Logan Paul from taking a knee or sitting out a count after round 2, you know, if he'd wanted to. But he didn't, and fair play to Floyd for essentially carrying Paul for quite a bit of the contest, I think it's fair to say, and you know, giving the fans a bit more entertainment for the money they had shelled out, those in attendance and those watching on pay-per-view, both on Showtime in the US and on Sky over here. And yeah, as I say, he seemed happy at the end of it. Obviously, if you just made a load of money for one of the easiest nights of your boxing life, you would be pretty happy, I would imagine. But I guess the main message to any of the fans out there, particularly those who don't watch boxing very often, is don't be fooled. You know, this was not, despite it lasting the 8 rounds and there being no official result, this was not a competitive fight. Mayweather kind of won the rounds as he pleased. Did Logan Paul win a round? No. Did he have Floyd in any sort of bother at any point? No. The punch stats underline that. I think Mayweather landed something like 40% to Logan Paul's 15%, something like that. And it could have been even more disproportionate than that between the two. Mayweather took his time, as I say, kind of carried Logan to an extent, let him punch himself out a bit, throw a lot of shots, not many of which landed. A few did. I think if Floyd Mayweather, even at this age, was going in for a real competitive fight at a high level and had trained in the same way and took it seriously mindset-wise, I don't think he would have landed maybe a single shot. But I think he took that swashbuckling approach as he did with Conor McGregor because he had no respect for what was coming back at him, and that's fair play. You know, he's at an age now and achieved so much already. He can kind of do what he wants. He's earned that right. Logan Paul less so, but he's got the just rewards for building his brand to the level it's got to. And fair play to him. You know, I find it hard. It's not something I'm interested in watching, and I don't want it to be considered among the same at the same kind of level or even the same stratosphere as traditional boxing. But as it exists in its own microcosm, I have no real issue with it at all. But yeah, don't be fooled. It wasn't close to being competitive. But what we will see is it being sold on the fact that Logan Paul achieved his dream. He managed to last the distance. No official winner. So there's still something that can be made from it. Now, I don't know if that will be a rematch between Logan Paul and Mayweather. More likely, in my view, after his next fight, if he wins against Tyron Woodley, is that Jake Paul, the younger brother, and the more gifted boxer, if we can say the word gifted in the same sentence as either of the Paul brothers, but certainly the better boxer than Logan, and perhaps because he's younger and he's got more time to learn and he's been in the gym perhaps a bit more, he could then step up and compete against in an exhibition. Can you compete? I'm not really sure what terminology to use. I'm flailing a bit with that. But yeah, Jake Paul, if he beats Tyron Woodley, could then fight Floyd Mayweather in another exhibition, probably again on Showtime. And I would imagine it'll make even more money than the Logan Paul fight because Jake Paul arguably has a bigger profile now than Logan Paul. He's certainly better known and more respected in boxing circles than his brother. and Floyd Mayweather can then go up against, you know, the other brother. It's a natural sell. Jake Paul obviously did the whole gotcha hat prank. Is it a prank? It's pretty obvious. At the press conference for the Logan Paul fight. So there's kind of an inbuilt narrative already. So let them go for it, and I think it'll make even more money. There's no indication yet on how many pay-per-view buys last night's fight will have generated. I know they were hopeful of doing over 1 million. We shall see what happens. The price point was decent for what it was. Decent enough undercard as well, with Luis Arias and Badu Jack scoring notable wins on the show. But we'll wait and see just how much it does. I mean, in the current climate, the shows we've seen that are doing well do tend to be the crossover shows that have a little bit of a difference about them. So it wouldn't surprise me if it does really good numbers. Looking at our website, our YouTube, and the views we get from different events, I would say this compares pretty favourably, actually, to Canelo against Billy Joe Saunders, which previously was the kind of biggest audience generator, if you like, so far in the year. I would say that looking at the figures for Mayweather Paul, so the press conferences pre-fight and post-fight, the comments from both fighters, I would say it probably matches it, if not outstrips it. So that bodes well in terms of pay-per-view options. Obviously, the difference is that Canelo Billy Joe Saunders, while it did clearly generate a lot of interest, was on DAZN. So a platform that certainly in the UK was at a very, very good price point when that fight took place. It's a bit of a different story, perhaps, when you have to shell out an additional fee for the fight. But we'll see. I mean, you know, I'm sure we'll find out. There'll be Mike Coppinger will be, you know, hanging around with his sauces, ready to pour some sauce on the pay-per-view figures, and we'll see. Or someone else. You know, it's not always Cop. Someone's got to challenge him at some point. Dan Raphael, the old veteran, maybe he'll come back into the game a bit more. But we'll see anyway. But I think based on the attention it garnered, it'll do well. And if it did do well, then we can almost certainly guarantee Floyd Mayweather against Jake Paul at some point, probably later this year. But again, don't be fooled. Jake Paul has some semblance of talent at boxing. There's no denying that anymore. And he's very good at building his own profile. He's obviously naturally bigger than Mayweather, just as his brother was and is. But there's no chance he beats Floyd Mayweather. Don't ever think that. Don't ever let them sell you that part of it. Everything else is fine, but don't ever let them make you believe that either of the Paul brothers or anyone with that limited experience has got any chance against Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather could come back now in traditional boxing, even at the age he is now, and be at least competitive, if not a favourite, against most of the fighters in and around the weight class he chooses to fight at. A rematch with Canelo, I imagine Canelo would be a favourite, but I don't imagine the odds would be prohibitive. So just think about that for a second, and then consider, you know, for everything the Paul brothers have done in terms of building their profile, you know, creating interest, getting an audience invested in them, which is something a lot of boxers could learn from, that side of things, the marketing side. As actual boxers, even if they train diligently for another couple of years, they will not be anywhere close to Mayweather's level. He's a generational talent. You know, you've got to be realistic. There are opposite ends of the spectrum. Having said that, that wasn't the only boxing of the weekend. We also saw it in the UK on Saturday night. Daniel Dubois out in Telford, which is an interesting location for a Dubois fight. Came back after that painful defeat against Joe Joyce. Actually came back earlier than his conqueror, who hasn't fought since. And got an early stoppage over, I don't mean early as in premature, I mean early as in early in the fight, against Bogdan Dinu, and is now the WBA interim heavyweight champion, which should place him in a mandatory position in the WBA rankings. Frank Warren already looking at a Trevor Bryan fight for the WBA regular belt, which is a winnable fight for Dubois and will put him in good stead. I think the biggest point here is that Dubois came back, didn't look gun-shy in any way after that fractured eye socket against Joe Joyce, and he fought on with that painfully for many rounds before he retired from the fight. So, you know, he's changed trainers a couple of times since as well, but he looked comfortable in there in the short time it lasted. And the thing that heartened me was that at the end, he looked so happy. Like, he's such a reserved character generally, but he let out all that frustration and emotion at the end of the fight when he knew he was back. He looked good, he got the win, and then he was shouting and jumping about the ring. And it was just great to see him like that, because it's a side of Dubois we haven't seen very often before. him and new trainer Shane McGuigan, obviously that bond is still developing, but they seem pretty much in sync. Dubois' dad, who's obviously very close to him, big part of his career, seems to get on very well with Shane, and Shane's dad, Barry McGuigan, obviously legendary former world champion. So it all seems to be going well at the moment. I just hope that Dubois matched sensibly going forward. I think Trevor Bryan's a good fight for him, but once you're at that level, it's kind of hard to step back. So let's bin the talk of the Joyce rematch for now. I don't think I'd back Joyce to win again if they were to fight soon. I think once he's had a year or so to develop under Shane McGuigan, then it could be a different story. And who knows where Joyce will be then as well. He might be a world champion. So let's wait and see. But yeah, very, very happy to see Daniel Dubois back. Stay tuned to the channel. We've got loads of post-fight content from Mayweather against Paul and from Dubois against Dinu. And we'll also be putting up loads of new content this week. So much stuff we've done, including exclusive gym shoots, Mark Tibbs' gym, Grant Smith's gym in Sheffield. Loads of different stuff that you haven't even seen yet. Stuff on Zoom as well. But we haven't been able to put it out because we're flooded with all the Mayweather Paul stuff. We don't want our fresh content to get lost. So stay tuned to the channel because there's a lot of exciting content. I sound like Logan Paul now. There's a lot of exciting content that'll be coming out this week. Really appreciate your time. Comments box below. Let me know what you thought of Mayweather Paul. Did you buy it? Did you enjoy it? Will you be watching Mayweather against Jake Paul if it happens? Just give me your analysis on that and a bit on Dubois if you fancy it too. I'll be back on Thursday for Flexpectations, 4:30 p.m, which is our preview show. Bit of a what's the word? Funereal feel about the Matchroom show on June the 12th this Saturday, as it's the last one under their existing deal with Sky Sports. But we will nonetheless talk about that on Thursday. And then the following Monday, the next Reflections, again, 4:30 p.m. Appreciate your time, as always, and I'll see you all soon.